Welcome to another episode of A Footballers Only. I'm Mike Idiokitis.
I'm James Pinay.
And today we have a special guest.
Keith Fletcher. Nice joining you, young man.
Awesome.
Yes. Welcome.
Thanks for having me.
Yes.
Let's just get right into it, which is, where does your football story begin?
I like most of us. I got this love from my father. He went to school in Manchester. My father's originally from Grenada in the Caribbean, and he went to school in England. Lived in Manchester, played while he was in the islands as well. He played for Grenada, and then further in love with soccer. I'm calling it soccer now. I guess I've been in America a tad too long. So you may hear me switch back and forth between football and soccer. It's all about the greatest sport in the world.
Yeah.
And he got me involved in it. So I started to play when I moved back to Trinidad at about, I may have been 7 or 8 years old. That's where I formally started to really play a lot. That's the first place I'd lived where people were able to play in the streets. So I played in the streets with my neighbors every afternoon, the same street we played cricket or we played soccer on. And I was very fortunate where I lived in Trinidad. There was what turned out to be, I think it was the largest league in Trinidad and maybe the Caribbean. It was the Eddie Hart Soccer League. And I lived in a place called Trinity, a real soccer hub in the east of Trinidad. And my neighbor one day told me that, you have to join this club. And when I went, it was just an amazing experience meeting people. I was able to express myself, very welcoming. I was from another island, so it was fitting in with this group of Trinidadians and we had one common language. And that was the ball. And it just went from there. I played there, and then I played for the Trinidad national team from 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. And then my dad moved back to Grenada from Trinidad. Mm-hmm. And I played for Grenada then from 14 till I stopped playing when I was 30 years old. I came up to the US in between. And it's just something I love to do. I still play on Wednesday nights and on Tuesday. And people at work know when I haven't played because my attitude in the workplace is different. So what I've come to realize is really integral to my well-being that I get to play. And I get to socialize. We play late in the evenings from 10 to 11. So I can't socialize as much as I would like. But it's still something that feeds my spirit. Yeah. So it's a love I've had for as long as I know.
Yeah, nice. So when you left Manchester and went back to went to Trinidad, mm-hmm. And you started playing, was it, and you said this is the first time you started playing street soccer, started playing street ball. What was that transition like? Because I'm assuming in Manchester you were playing on grass and nice pitches.
So I jumped a bit, Mike. I left. I was born in Scotland. Uh-huh. So my dad and my mom came and met him from Grenada, and they got married in Manchester. And his first job was in Scotland, a place called Uddingston. Uh-huh. And myself and my brother were born. But I left when I was 18 months old. And we moved back to Grenada for a while. My dad had been graduated as an engineer at that time. So we moved back to Grenada, spent about 18 months. My sister was born there, then we moved to Dominica. He had a job in Dominica. My other sister was born there. We lived there for 6 years, and then we moved to Trinidad. Wow. So while I was, so I had that gap. But it's funny, I don't recall playing soccer a lot in Dominica. I just recall that experience in Trinidad. Yeah. And it was just something that everybody did. I'd never been anywhere in the world that everybody played. That's what they did. There was a time of the year they put down the cricket bat and everybody played soccer. And then when it was cricket season, the soccer ball and everybody played cricket. So it was just a natural part of life. It was very organic. Yeah. And the streets were the place to be. Nobody could go and the fields were 10 minutes walk, but nobody's walking, you know. and it was funny. What I found very interesting when I was there, I saw the streets were as wide as Old Trafford is. But when I went back as a grown guy, I realized I could stretch across the street with my leg and touch both sides.
Yeah.
And to the point of having conversations, we played FA Cup finals in that street.
Yeah.
And to this day we still talk about feats that were done in the streets. But that's where you got the drive and not just that, the creativity, because you always wanted to do something special for somebody to talk about after.
Yeah.
You know, you either wanted to score, you wanted to dribble somebody nicely. And then it helps when you have, you know, my dad was there driving. Like, he always said that you have to put everything into it. If you didn't, then you get hurt. So I was always aware that I had to really try my hardest. But it was the one thing I would completely enjoy doing. So it came very natural for me to fight and try hard.
Yeah.
But I think that flair, that West Indian, that I would never have been the same had I grown up in England. They don't dance the same, they don't move the same. And part of football is your culture, where you know from the continent we play with a certain type of with our history, you know, with the music in our soul. So I think that was very, very beneficial for me.
Yeah. So to go back right then, when you was playing in the street, was it organized by any adult, or you guys just did it on your own?
So it was a combination, right, James? So in the street was just 4:00 in the afternoon. Everybody came out and you played. And then with the club, that was like in the neighborhood, in that vicinity, that was a little bit more organized.
Okay.
But the street was where we played every afternoon, you know, and that was as the only organized part was who gets to pick first. and then it was just, you just had it. You know, it was never rough. So I was 10 years old and able to play with 18-year-old people. And my dad played with me on the street and the neighbor's dad. So we had this hierarchy.
Yeah.
And nobody, you didn't have to be scared of being hurt. Nobody was trying to damage you. But you couldn't embarrass a big man either, because then he would there's a hierarchy, right?
Yes.
So but what you wanted to do was fight to try to figure where your place was in that state. Yeah. And so when I played with my peers, I had to try to establish a hierarchy too. You know, I had to, you know, you have to, and the better you are, the better you are in the hierarchy. And then you're not the one getting sent to get drinks or gets, you know, sent to the store.
Or play goalie or be the goalie, the permanent goalie.
So it's really a very interesting, it's really a very interesting time I had.
Yeah. When you, especially, you know, when you transition, in Trinidad, you were playing on the youth national team, and then, you know, Grenada as well. At that point, did you have any football idols?
Yeah, the funny part, you idolize what you see. So at that time, they didn't have a lot of football that I could see. We used to get coming like the FA Cup finals. So it's very interesting. Guys around my age support Tottenham, Everton, Manchester United, because that's who was on TV. Yeah. You know, when we were growing up, we never got to see anybody else. Very rarely you'd see anybody else. Liverpool was there. It was there too. But my idols were my dad's idols. So my dad liked Georgie Best. I'd never seen him play. I just heard the words. He loved Pele. Yeah. So I had nothing to look at. Yeah. But I heard from them. And I was fortunate I lived across the street from a very, very skillful young man. And so I would just go by him and ask him to show me something. So I had this nice balance of people who they came to represent something bigger than maybe TV could have shown me there. But my idols tended to be what my dad handed on to me. So Georgie Best and Pele, you know.
Nice. Okay. There's a question I'm going to ask you based on what you just said. But before I get to that question, you said you went to your neighbor who was skilled, and that's where so was that who you learned a lot of your technical and creativity from?
He was the one who brought to me a piece of flair. He wasn't a big guy, but he had an incredible touch. And I loved how he moved. And so I would go and I'd say, show me something. I didn't have YouTube to look at. and I would be walking from school and I'd say, Chet, show me something. Mm-hmm. And then he would show me something and I would go and try this something. And I played every day. I mean, my dad, I think they got tired of me wearing out shoes, and I just loved to play. And that's how I tried. I just try stuff that I saw from him. And then as I got older, I started to like certain players in certain positions. And to be fair, I like the adulation. You know, I liked how certain people would play, and when they'd come off, you'd only call 3 people's name, and I'm like, only have 11 people, and everybody only knows Ronaldo, right? Why? Yeah. And like every young boy, you know, you want to be that one. Yeah. So I started to follow players who, my dad was a forward striker growing up. I had a very good shot. And so so I naturally played striker, and he taught me, you know, you have to look at people that play a position. Yeah. And he always said, look at the best people that play a position. And he's saying, look at, but there's no TV to look at. So I have to go and look at somebody who I know. That was Chet. There was other people in my area, you know, and he would, you know, so he would just put those little tidbits into me. And then as TV came and we got more exposure, I was able to actually sit down and look at a player and see what he did. Yeah. And he would tell me, and he taught me to look at the game from the perspective of where your man is relative to where the ball is at any point in the play. So if the ball is in the defense, still look at your man and see what he's doing. He said, don't look at the ball. Spectators look at the ball. If you want to be a footballer, look at your man, right? Mm-hmm. So I would always look at where my player was relative to where the ball was. So I got very good positional sense because I'd been studying them from the beginning, you know? Yeah. And so that you know, it is good to have someone who played as well. My dad played, was very quick. I wasn't as fast as he was, but he showed me what speed could do. Yeah. But I had better touch than he had. So I was able to put my touch in with that side, you know, and so it was, and then once you have love for anything, you give everything you got.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, there's so much. Okay, the first thing I want to ask is about, are you still in touch with Chet?
It's so funny, man. I got in touch with him on Facebook. So this team that we have has a group on Facebook. And I was introduced to this group again. And one of the things about, you know, like we could call it village life, island life. When you have someone from your area that did a little something, you keep that one close. Yeah. So when I was coming up, Chet had the talent to play at any level. But when I was coming up, it was the first time Trinidad tried to have an organized system to develop a national team. So they broke out they had zones where they had trials in zones, and then you get picked out of your zone, and then you would come together and then you'd form this national team. So I came at the right time. Life is about practice and opportunity and preparation, right? So I just happened to be there when they were doing this. And so I came out of my zone, and I came out as a young guy, 11-year-old on the U14 team at that time. And so in my area, I was protected. And so they would have me play on the U14 team. Then they would give me a couple of games on the U16. They knew I liked Chet. Chet was a 19-year-old. They had me play with Chet up front as a 14-year-old. It was only 10 minutes, but they would, they gave you a little taste of it. Yeah. So I am in contact with Chet. His birthday was a couple of weeks ago. And you know, and I'm sure he touched a lot of young men like me. And he doesn't know what he's done for me. I've never had the chance to say thank you. You know, I would just vibe with him and be, so hopefully he sees this. I'll send this.
Yeah. This is an opportunity to give him his flowers.
Yeah. Yep. And like you all are doing now, I was pushed by a young man named Neves, who was in my neighborhood. Neves saw the ability he thought I could make the national team, and I would have never thought that for myself. And so he told my dad, I want to bring Keith to this trial. And my dad said, well, you know, he's from the neighborhood. You know how we go, we trust the neighbors back in those days. So he took me, and he made sure I got to the practice, and I got to the trial, and he was, so you know, it took like we say a village to make me get that chance to play for Trinidad. You know, at that age. You know,
nice. No, that's good. Okay, we might have to find a way to interview Czech. In the future, definitely. We'll talk offline to make that
absolutely.
But okay, so what I want to go back to is we're gonna come to this piece, the influence of your dad, right? Because it's coming full circle, right? But before we get there, you know, throughout your playing career, you know, you played Trinidad, Grenada. And, you know, as you got older, I'm going to ask you this question. And, you know, being a footballer and being in the culture, there's nothing you're going to say. There's no right answer.
Absolutely. No problem.
So you're gonna have Czech might even call you and say, Keith, what are you talking about? You know, right? So the question is, who's in your top 11 greatest of all time?
The greatest player of all time is R9, Ronaldo from Brazil.
Yeah, no, but top 11. So 11
top,
players.
Top 11 players, yeah. You can do top 11.
Yeah, you go 11. I'll help you count. I'll help.
Yeah, Ronaldo.
Ronaldo's one.
Can I go Ronaldo up front, Ronaldo on the side? So, and the thing is, if I'm trying to make a starting 11, it might be different. So no. The top. I have Zico, Ronaldo, Maradona, Pele, Beckenbauer, Platini, Zidane.
That's tough.
Puskás is there. I missed the boy. How could I miss? Eusebio is there.
Wow. The Black Pearl.
Black Pearl.
That's
we got two more.
Yeah.
That Mario Kempes, I liked him. Back in it, Mario Kempes was a touch of a player. Ooh, and I can't forget the Dr. Socrates.
Wow,
I'm a Brazilian.
Yeah. No, that's heavy. That's Brazilian. You did need Pele. Okay.
Yeah.
No, I mean who's the last guy you named? I didn't hear it. Who was the last guy?
The Dr. Socrates.
Socrates.
Oh, Socrates. Okay.
Socrates.
Yes.
Yeah, no, Socrates is a monster. Yeah. I mean, that's a tough list.
Yeah,
right. That's
icons.
I may have forgotten some great ones.
Oh yeah. No. There's, but you. I mean, you didn't include Ronaldinho.
Yeah. That's my son might beat me. Undoubtedly talented young man. I mean, undoubtedly great players. And he just slipped my mind, to be fair. I think he's one of the ones that definitely are the pinnacle. The one thing I think he it's very hard to come from a culture where you are it's so easy going, and then get into a culture at a certain age where it's a business, and decide to stay there very long, and take the business side of it, you know. And I think that's what some Brazilians tend to struggle with.
Yes.
It's funny. It doesn't happen to people from Uruguay, Chile, but it's a different mentality, you know.
Yeah.
But the Brazilians, they want to get back home.
Yeah. Yes. You know, I mean, I've talked about this a lot. And, you know, for me, I was used to this when it came to Brazilians. But for me, the one shocker was when Tevez did this. And, you know, he did this, and this is like crystal in my mind. I remember seeing the interview, right? So he's at Man City, and he literally had already signed a contract. And then like 2 weeks or 3 weeks later, he said he was leaving. He was going back to Argentina. And the press was just out of their mind. You know, they couldn't understand. They were like, you have all these millions and all this stuff.
Yeah.
And he was like, it's too cold.
Yep.
Like he literally said that. He was like, he's like, and so you know, but it's hard. Yeah,
it's very hard. People, it's. I think one of the things is that you, it's very, very, very hard to be a professional athlete. Mm-hmm. It's also very hard to be a foreigner in another man's land. Yeah. Mm-hmm. It's also difficult when you don't speak the language.
Yep.
You have family as well. Mm-hmm. And so you're moving in, when you have all those competing factors, and then you have the tug of your homeland where you know if you go, it's a different type of life.
Yeah.
And then after a while you get tired like everybody else, you know, but it's a lot of pressure being a professional athlete anywhere.
Yeah.
Being under the spotlight continually. It's one of the sports you don't play with a helmet, right? So in football, you play with a helmet, you can keep your helmet on and nobody sees you, right? Baseball, it's the same. Soccer, you're out there for everybody to see. And then when you play in England is very, very small, you know? So it's not, there are no competing sports.
No.
So if you're the man in the place, every time you leave your house, you're the only person they look at.
Yeah.
And then people feel nowadays they have the right to be able to tell you anything because you are a commodity.
Yeah.
And so you hear sometimes things are not too pleasant. Your family gets to experience that. So I think after a while, some of these gentlemen say, well, why? You know, I had $1, now I have 25. 26 mightn't change that so much.
Right.
You know, so let me get the beach in the warm weather. And go with my 25 that becomes 100 when I go back home, you know.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, right. Because when you're back home, nothing is paid for.
Yeah.
You know, everything is like nobody's gonna take your money. Like you go to any grocery store, any restaurant, whatever, is everything's on the house. You know. So
what happened in France? Even in France today, Neymar and Messi was booed. It's insane. Messi is one of the greatest of all time.
No, it's really
short memories. You know, we got short memories.
Yeah.
You know?
Okay. No, I mean that's an amazing list. And you know, obviously it shows that you are a student of the game.
Yes.
You know, you obviously love the Brazilians
and attacking the players.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, it's all actually. Yeah, I don't think
my team would lose 25, 30. Nobody would defend.
There's no, I mean, you did. I mean, you could. I don't think
you'd be good value for money.
Cafu or Roberto Carlos. You know,
nobody in the back.
Nobody in the back. No.
Nobody in the back. That's fine. Okay, so let's transition a little to one of the things you keep bringing up, which is the influence of your dad on you as a player. And you know, one of the reasons we initiated this conversation is to talk to you about the role of a parent in raising someone that grows up to be a professional athlete, right? And so you know your son is in the process, and really, I want to one, touch on the influence of your dad on your journey, and then we would then come back to some of the things you took from that and how you implemented that in the growth of your son.
That's my dad was everything. I think like most of us, my dad was a disciplinarian first. but a strong advocate for me. And one of the things I only got to appreciate later on is he was always there. I didn't realize it at the time. I thought it was quite normal, but he was always there. I would play a game and I'd look up and he would be somewhere. And only after I realized I just wanted to play for my dad. I remember one time the first boots I ever wore was the boots that he wore. And I remember when he gave it to me, I was going to a trial with, it's the first time the national team of Trinidad had kind of come together. Remember I talked about the zones?
Yeah.
And they had collectively picked players from all the zones. So this was now like 35 or something. And my dad had the soccer boots that he had worn maybe 25 years before. But I remember polishing that boot. It was Adidas boots on it. It was shiny and nice. And I put it on to go to this special day. And when I started to run, it just opened up. It had dry rotted. Right. And I remember we had to leave the field and he had to go and get me a boot. But it meant everything to me to be able to wear this boot that my dad had. And it didn't last 5 minutes. And then after that, he was just always around. He knew enough about the game to know that he didn't know a lot technically, but he knew he could teach me to just work, to be driven, to be passionate. And so I got a lot of that side from him. Like even to this day, I still play very, very serious. And I'm way past serious ability, right? But it's that drive was there for me. And so that's kind of what he instilled in me. When I had the chance at about 17 to go back to England to play. I was living in Grenada at the time, and he didn't think that was a good thing for me. He wanted me to go to college and do that side of the house. He did not share that decision with me when he made that decision. And I found out about it after. And I only bring that up to say, when I had my son, my promise to him and to me was that I would share anything about his future that came, I would share it with him. Because I wanted him to be abreast of everything. Because I'd always, to this day, I still wonder what could have.
Yeah.
Right. But I'm also grateful because he knew me better than I knew myself then. And maybe he knew that I was not ready. Yeah. And I may have fallen. I remember him saying, everybody who finishes playing soccer owns a pub and becomes an alcoholic. That's what he saw when he saw Georgie Best. Remember, he liked Georgie Best. Yeah. So his experience was that. And he didn't want that for me. Yeah. And they didn't have the money in the game that they have now. So he was making the decisions based on his experience, what he saw as a black man trying to play in England. He had his own pieces. And that was not for him. When he left England, he never returned. He didn't want to see that place again. Wow. So there were obviously parts of him that came in that he used to make decisions for me. Yeah. And so one of the things is he died. He's been going now about for 14 years. What I miss is I can't share with him where my son is to be able to talk to him through that. Yeah. So what I try to do is talk to him as best I can. And then I try to see the decisions he made for me, and then how I carry that and try to either break it or continue it. So the decision with when I got a call to go to Leeds at 16, and he told the guy, don't call the house again. I made my mind up that I will tell my son if anybody asks me about it. I would share that with him. So we look at those things right now. We just yesterday we were looking at some opportunities again that are presenting themselves, thankfully for him. But he knows everything, and I know it's not everything he can process. But I try to have him follow a process to come to the outcome. You know. Yeah. And so the lessons of my father have been very beneficial to me, and the ones that I maybe they didn't have. The most positive feeling generated for myself, I try to adjust that so my son won't have that particular experience.
Yeah.
But they're in a different time now, you know. He has the opportunities now that they weren't there 10 years ago.
Yeah.
You know. So I also have to try to take that in. So it's good to talk to different people as well, you know, people your age, who play now, people who, you know, so it's just been a very interesting thing. I miss him that I couldn't sit now and have that conversation with him. You know, the time when we were supposed to move from a very type of vertical relationship to a more what I would call a horizontal relationship. He left at that time. So and I left home at 21. Like most of us, we leave early to go. And I left at 20, and you never go back home.
Yeah.
You know, you go home for vacation or something. So you miss a big thing. So that part, that's kind of like how I try to take the lessons that my dad put into me, and try to what was very helpful. I try to push it through to my son and anybody else that cares to want to know what my experience is like, or if they ask me for any opinions. And then the ones that weren't 1,000% right, very few of them, I also share. I may tweak them a bit for my son, so he gets to get that perspective.
Yeah.